Welcome to Uncomfortable Growth Uncut, where we celebrate those who defy fear, embrace growth, and live without regret. In a world that celebrates perfection, we rarely hear about the challenges, fears, and crossroads that successful leaders grapple with across work and life. Uncomfortable Growth Uncut shines a light on their personal story and the critical human skills we all need today to turn trials into triumph. So welcome to Uncomfortable Growth Uncut. Today I'm here with Taz Papoulias, who is the founder and head strategist at Seamless Media. He's also a 20-year veteran in the media industry, and we met for the first time at a panel that we were doing for Media Week, which was a lovely opportunity to meet someone I hadn't met before. So welcome to Uncomfortable Growth Uncut, Taz.
Thank you so much, Rowena. I'm very excited to be here. I've been listening to the series so far. It's been very eye-opening, and I can't wait to contribute myself.
Well, that's what I love about it. It's the stories you don't often hear, the ones behind the person, the ones that we often don't share, but are so important and powerful. So why don't we jump straight in? What's your uncomfortable growth story, Taz?
Sure. So I guess we would need 4 or 5 episodes to cover it, but essentially the last 10 years or so have been very difficult in life, business, etc. Yet the last 10 weeks have been a complete turnaround, especially with my father passing away probably about 5 weeks ago. There was a big shift, and it just so happened to be right when I was launching a new business, which was very difficult. But I'm also in one of the best headspaces I've ever been in, which was hard for me to understand for quite some time.
That's so interesting you say that, because often when really meaningful but extreme experience happen to us, which I would definitely account loss of a parent, it makes us just stop and think differently and behave differently, which can actually lead to that silver lining.
Definitely. And I think that's what I learned over time. So, I mean, I've experienced divorce. I've had 3 people who were very close to me rip me off. I've lost my house and, millions of dollars, and had to rebuild myself several times. So I had trust issues in business, and then I was in toxic work environments where I was, being charged to do things that I wasn't really proud of, but that's just how the industry worked. And at one point, towards my father passing away, I had to make, I guess, a change in my life, because I knew that I couldn't deal with the multitude of stresses everywhere. So I ended up quitting my job to spend as much time as I could with my father and launching my own business. And then just when I decided to launch my business, my father passed away. And it's actually his teachings and what I've learned over the years that have helped me to be in the position that I am now, where it is sad and bittersweet, but I think I'm at the strongest mindset I've ever been at as well.
It's it's such a difficult thing when someone is likely to pass as well. So, there's the hardness of that, but I guess you also get to spend more time or have conversations that maybe you wouldn't have had, and really have that meaningful connection. So, I know you took some time off to spend more time with your dad. What did that look like, and what did you both discover or do with that special time that you had?
I guess my father was a very um, forward thinking, but also brutally honest person. That was just his nature, and he had a very successful business his entire life. But I think when you're faced with the psychological issues of death yourself, and you realize there's not much time left, you also don't have time for any fluff. So what you tell your children, your wife, your loved ones, it is what it is. If you're angry about something, they know about it. If you have a piece of advice, they'll let you know about it. And I think the the way that he was prepping me for death and saying that, look, you're going to be devastated when I pass away. But he told me a story about how everything passes, whether it's the good times, the bad times, but this too shall pass, to
Mm.
make sure that you stick to your moral compass. That was a turning point, and that's when I decided to leave my job. And my partner had just lost her father in 6 months
Mm.
prior as well. She was still dealing with that.
Yeah.
So it was like I didn't know what to do with myself. And then I remember my father teaching me that he said, you don't believe me, but you could probably work 100 hours a week if you look after your mind. And over the last 6 or 7 months now, I decided to dedicate 10% of my time to basically my mental health, which
Mm-hmm.
wasn't things like studying psychology or stoicism and who am I as a person, but it was basically just disconnecting and reflecting. So I
Mm-hmm.
found that in any given week, if I work a regular 40-hour week, if I keep 10%, 4 or 5 hours to myself to disconnect from devices, not talk to anybody, partner, children, clients, whatever it may be, and just reflect on how you think and feel, it actually made my output a lot better. And when I was working long hours trying to get my business up and running, I realized that I was doing 70, 80 hours weeks. But if I was putting aside those 7, 8, 9 hours a week on myself to disconnect, I felt like I could go forever. And it made me
Yeah.
realize that your mental state, in terms of not just your thoughts, but downtime, because your brain is like a computer. And if you don't switch off that computer, the battery dies, the laptop dies, it's dead. Your brain is exactly the same.
Mm.
Found is that really has given me the strength to move forward with whatever I am faced with in life, essentially.
Yeah. I love that because I think it is so important just to have a space where you're not being the computer, and we all know what it's like at work or even at home when you getting family out the door and like it's frenetic, it's
Yeah.
it's all doing. But to actually just have that space to be, I actually started meditation properly about a year and a half ago. And I dabbled because, all the benefits are so well known and are reinforced in so many different ways from neuroscience, but as well as, the history of cultures who meditate. There's so many positives, but it is also a discipline and you need to make that time and do it, right? Because otherwise you are still just running like that laptop and your battery's slowly draining. But also I think there's so much value in just being.
And people don't really understand it because at any given moment, somebody will need you, your son, your daughter, your partner.
Mm-hmm.
It could be your boss. It could be one of your staffers. They're
Mm-hmm.
always going to need you. And nothing is
Mm-hmm.
that urgent in this world that it can't wait 1 hour so you can have a reset or a cup of tea or go for a walk
Mm-hmm.
or reflect on what's happened in your life. Hell, have a power nap. I have plenty of them throughout the days when I'm having a stressful day, a 45-minute power nap.
I
And
know.
when you learn that nothing is truly that important, that it
Mm.
just can't wait an hour or two, depending on how busy you are,
Mm.
start to put things in a little bit more perspective and you start to value the time that when you're working, that's it, I'm working. And when I'm not, I'm not. And the same thing is with your family time. You start to value that a lot more. If you're in the kitchen with the kids and you're cooking and the phone rings, too bad. I'm with the kids right now in this moment, and starts to make you a lot more present as well.
Mm. Mm. I love that because particularly when you're going through difficult times that take a lot of emotion. Obviously, having a parent who's not well, knowing that they're likely to pass, you know, triggers big emotions. But emotions take energy and capacity. And I don't think that we do I don't think we recognize that about ourselves, that the more intense we are, the more time we need to refuel and re-energize because we're doing so much. So when you were talking about, if I keep this time for me, this 1 hour, then I know I can do so much better when I'm at work or with the family. I can be focused. I can be present. I can perform better in whatever is that context or circumstance.
Definitely. And I think another key point that I've learned along the way is everything comes in sets. You just don't know the time between sets. Emotions are like waves, events in your life. And if it was explained to me as a train going through the stops, you're standing there at the platform, and that train is your anger or your sadness about your father or whatever it may be. And if you're standing there on the platform, that train will go by. You need to accept what has happened, but then that train moves on. And you're
Mm-hmm.
standing there on the platform now, and you can walk in any direction and do whatever you like. But that train will come back again sometime. And when it does, you need to accept that it's here. And I think the problem is that we don't accept a lot of the situations that we're in, and we try to fight them. And then
Mm-hmm.
that starts to bleed in other areas of our life. So when I understood it was okay to feel tired or sad or happy or remorse or whatever it may be, you process that emotion and then you get to move on as opposed to holding it forever.
Yeah, I think that that's so wise, and I totally agree. It's part of being human,
Yeah,
and it's not something to be ignored.
no.
Because we don't want to show the world that there's this perception that feeling emotions is a weakness, but in fact, I think of it as a strength. And I was actually saying this to my daughter the other day that I can't even remember how it came up, but we were talking about crying. And I said, no, tears are a strength because you've got the courage to be in the moment. You've got the courage to feel and to know that that is okay. It's being human. And once you release that, it means that you're able to more calmly move on because you've processed it exactly as you said.
And I think I mean, we all have different upbringings.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I've grown up to be a typical male to some degree where I never shown my emotions. I was very neutral a lot of the time, not too much happiness, not too much sadness. It is what it is. You'll get over
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Really was never working for me. And approximately 6 years ago, I met my partner, and complete opposite to me, somebody who doesn't hold things in, is very emotional, is very open, wonderful person.
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, I was actually worried that I would rub off on her because she was such a wonderful person. And I didn't become this tough person that I was. But what happened over the last 6 years, it was actually the opposite. She softened me up and I started to process emotions a lot better. And when
Mm-hmm.
I was in the workplace, what I was learning about relationships and love and just the human connection in general, that transferred at work. And I started looking at people behind just what they do at work and what you pay them for. And when they came into work and they weren't performing, you can sit them down and say, is everything okay? And something might have happened in their life. And when you give them time to reset or go home,
Mm-hmm.
care for themselves or their family, then they come back and they've processed and they're more functional at work. And ever since that point, 6, 7 years ago, completely changed my outlook. And I actually think that's when we first met. I was giving that speech at the LinkedIn offices for Media Week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You hire people based on potential and the person that they are, and you're confident in your own skills and training them, that'll be a far better employee or colleague that you'll ever have than just hiring somebody just for what they are on their resume. And I think
Mm-hmm.
my work
Yeah.
ethic in general.
Yeah, that's I think that's such an important point in today's corporate world as well, because we are asking people to not just turn up to work, but to genuinely show up because there's so many things happening with restructures and new business models and more restructures. And then, everything's changing through technology, which is directly impacts the media industry. So there is so much flux. There's, so much gray area constantly with change. And, I think it's so important to help people navigate their emotions, and I often use the term small self and best self because we all have one.
Yeah,
We all have a small self and a best self,
we do.
and we all move between both sides. But there's this real kind of sometimes expectation that you just only show the positive, which is, oh, yes, it's all good, nothing's wrong. I'm going to kind of stifle what's happening or not talk about it, this separation between work and life. And I just think that that is so unhealthy. And it means that the person's not bringing all of that insight and richness, which comes from being human, the hard stuff.
The hard stuff. And just like in life, the only thing permanent is impermanence. It's the exact same
Mhm.
thing with your emotions. And I don't think we ever look at that. We look at life as hustle and bustle, and I have to learn to how to adapt, and AI is coming and
Mhm.
whatever it may be. But we never actually look at that with ourselves, which is, I guess, the whole case around this too shall pass. So when you are angry and in that moment, when
Mm.
you are sitting on top of the world and you think this is great, to be humble because this will eventually pass and it'll just be another wave. And I think the more that we can understand ourselves and our emotions, it also means that you can be at your best because I know I do my best work from 6 a.m. till 10 a.m. and from 8 o'clock at night till midnight. So I work during those hours and I'm a lot more efficient than during the day when my mind is wondering about what I'm going to do next in business and whatnot. So I think when you start to listen to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
to your mind, that's also when you become your best as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And start to tailor to what gets the best out of you. So like you just described, your best working hours look different to other people because we're all unique. And what works for you may look different for me, but when you know yourself, you can better manage the breadth of emotions and circumstances which are going to come. That's the train. The train's going to come back. Um, but also to understand how you can move forward with grace and ease.
Yes, and I think it's something that as a society we could do better at school or university or an induction program to include, because just like when you leave school, you're not taught about tax or how to run a home or have a savings bank account, etc. It's the same thing when you go into the workforce. You're not taught about the way that the world operates in terms that you're going to have bad days, you will be struggling, you will feel upset, times are going to be tough, but that's okay. How promotions work in human resources, you just never taught these things. You have everybody is taught to just learn on the fly. And
Mm-hmm.
possibly what can take 10 years of experience could possibly be taught at some
Mm-hmm.
stage during your career on how to look after yourself a lot better.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Totally agree. And speaking of the workplace, I know you mentioned, some other challenging situations that you've been through. So there was two things that I can recall around toxic workplaces, and then also,
Yeah.
I guess, losing your business, being ripped off by your business partners. So how have those things actually connected and informed where you are now?
Yeah. So I guess in terms of toxic environments, because I've been in the same industry, marketing and media for 20 years, the term toxic environment is really quite similar, whether I've been in corporate or media side, client side, etc. And what that essentially is, it's how many different ways can you skin a cat? And I've found that pricing people fairly is not really much of an option in the world. And really, it's almost legalized threat. And I'm not saying legalized theft, and I'm not saying that everybody does it, but if you're truly working the best that you can for a client and you're charging them fairly and there's a fair,
Mm-hmm.
you both respect each other.
Mm-hmm.
Try to milk the most that you can out of your staff by making them work overtime and not being paid for unreasonable hours and days. And then you start to milk your clients because you'd like to maximize the revenue. Eventually, you lose your staff and you lose your clients, and you're in a state of constant churn and burn.
Mm-hmm.
That really messed around with my head for quite some time because I've always held quite high positions in companies and I was basically a number. Hit these targets no matter what, and you'll get this big bonus, and you'll get shares in the business, and you'll get A, B, C, and D. Then once you get to that point, you're never given any of those things. And then you're made redundant, or there's cutbacks. And because you're on high salary, you're the first to get chopped because they can replace you with another two people or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
So that really forged in me not to treat people like a number and to have an open discussion about what they would like their working inclusions and environment to be, because not everybody is all about money. Some people would
Mm-hmm.
rather be paid less and
Mm-hmm.
come to work late so they can take the children to school, or to be
Mm-hmm.
working from home every Thursday and Friday. There should be no set rules. Here is your contract of employment, and that's it. I'll see you at your review in 6 months. It should
Mm.
be, how can we get you where you would like to be, and how can we make you a better person in your role? So after experiencing all that, that's the only way that I run my business now, and how I treat my staff and my clients. I ask them where they would like to be and what I could do to get them there.
Mm. It's almost ironic that an industry which is so expert in personalization
Yes.
and not very good at personalization of employees. Because what I'm interpreting from what you're saying is there's a basic contract, right? Which is here's the role, here's the description, and here's a rough salary. But there's so much more around that that
Yes.
you've got the ability to craft for the person and to have them feel like a valued person rather than a number or, just a robot, because we know that the robots are there already, the machines, robots, AI, whatever format it takes. Humans are not that.
And
And we
I
don't want
think
to be treated like that.
correct. And I think sometimes we go too far. All of a sudden, there's all these DEI policies, and then we need a head of vibe in the office, and then we need, or just sit people down and treat them like humans that they are.
Uh-huh.
And I
Uh-huh.
think the world would be a much better place.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's a really good insight. It doesn't have to be a sexy policy that that's a thing, because what works for Kerry may not work for Tom.
That's
And
right.
and when you've got people who are wanting to stay and want to do a good job, they work with you.
Yes.
But it's having those conversations and understanding that you can't meet what everyone wants, but you can do a good effort at trying and delivering some of it that
I
has to
agree.
work for the person and the business.
And I think the biggest issue in any industry is essentially middle management, which is a lot of positions that I've held besides owning a business, because in middle management, you're being pulled from the top and you're being pulled from the bottom.
Mm,
And you're essentially everybody's punching bag, and you're essentially everybody's go-to point for help. And a lot
hmm
of the times, middle management have been promoted just because they've been in the industry the longest, or because they've got great sales results, or whatever it may be, but they don't necessarily have those skills to
mm,
deal with C-level suite or to deal with struggling staff and whatnot. So I
mm,
think that, I mean, society would collapse without middle management in any industry because it's so
mm.
key. But I think all of us could do a better job in middle management by learning those skills.
Yeah.
That not only taking care of ourselves, because it's normal middle management that is burnt out quite a lot, but it's also how do we take care of those below us, which is important.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I also think too, through conversation. I feel like in today's workplace, because everyone's so busy, and then there's hybrid working, which I think has great value, right? I'm
Definitely.
I'm for hybrid working, but it just means that there's more distance. And then we've got, our younger generations, the Gen Zers coming into the workplace who don't necessarily feel comfortable without being behind a screen. So you've got all of these kind of different things. The conversations is where you can unlock the value, and that requires those human skills or those soft skills, EQ skills that you're referencing. It's not just about the functional skills and do you know how to complete a buy or a comm strategy. Do you actually know how to have those conversations with people and not just once a year in a performance review?
Definitely. I think performance reviews are definitely do have a lot of pros and cons, but what I found is the way that I approach that, because it was a good point you have brought up, is essentially I build out a roadmap of where staff would like to be, and instead of actually having performance reviews every month, quarterly, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
based on them, and there's no forms or anything to be filling out, and I'm the one that does all the notes and all the marking and all the analysis of where I think they're going. And I summarize every meeting that we have. And it's actually a hidden conversation we're having throughout the year. And then at the end,
Mm-hmm.
we recap all those conversations that we've been having. Oh, in January, you said this. And hey, in April, now you're here. And they look back at it and go, did I really
Oh,
say that?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm right now. So when it's less structured and they don't realize they're having a performance review just by having conversations with you and it's natural,
Yeah.
you tend to get a lot more out of them instead of them thinking,
Yeah.
tell me a time when A, B, C, D. And how
Yeah.
did you overcome this obstacle? So I think if we're a little bit more human, like you said, it's not just about IQ, it's about EQ, you'll get much more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's also how people lean into their potential more. I've had some amazing managers and bosses, whatever word you want to use.
Yeah.
Um, but the thing that the best ones did is they always saw something in me that was bigger than what I currently believed.
Yes.
And, they would say to me, I can see you stepping into this with the right support and, because of these strengths and I'm like, wow, they can see that. I can't see that at the moment, but if they think it, maybe that's true. And those sort of conversations come through deep trust. Because if
Definitely.
I don't trust the manager, I don't trust that they have my best interests at heart, then I'm just going to dismiss it as that's just token or, there's something political going on with that statement.
Yes. And what you'll find is the most successful people in their career or their lives have either had a mentor
Mm.
or at least just one person who has really believed in them, like you've just said with a previous
Mm-hmm.
manager. And as long as that you have a mentor to go to, or you have somebody that believes in you, that's unbelievable
Mm-hmm.
battery life that'll keep you going through those tough times.
Mm-hmm. And want to do better because you feel motivated. You bring more discretionary effort
Yes,
because you believe that someone cares for you and you want to do the right thing for them as well. So yeah, it's I think it's fascinating that in a world where we're working with machines so much that it's almost like people are competing with the machines rather than complementing the machines
yes,
because it's the human skills that AI is not good at, right? And I know they're developing chatbots and what did I hear the other day? The clinical therapists, they've got the similar results to actually psychologists now with some of the basic therapy approaches and psychological support. But people want to feel that they're treated as a person, that they're valuable beyond the spreadsheet that they're working on.
that's right. And I think some things will never ever be replaced by AI. I mean, there's reason why
Mm.
people still read books when they could download it for free. There's the aesthetic touch and feel
Mm.
of a book. And it's the same thing with emotions. You can ask
Mm.
ChatGTP or whatever platform you like, what is love? Or tell me,
Mm.
how do you experience love? Or tell me that you love me. And hearing that from a computer, no matter how many times it's written, will not be the same from hearing it from your father or your wife or your son or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So that human element will always be important, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, particularly while we're human.
exactly.
Humans for humans. I can see a
Yeah.
slogan.
I don't think in our lifetime it's going to be you know, similar to the movie Terminator. So I think we're safe, our generation at least.
I hope so. Although I will tell you something really funny. It's the movie, I think it's called She with
Yeah.
Scarlett Johansson, where
Oh,
she's
Lucy?
yeah, no, she's an AI. It's not Lucy, it's
Yeah.
called She. And she's an AI, and anyway, this guy falls in love with the AI, and he finds out that she's actually having a relationship with thousands of people. And he's like, "What? I thought it was
What?
just me," because it felt so personal. But in that movie, the main character, the guy, he actually writes love letters. That's his job. And that was a job that I started at university. I used to write love letters.
That's a job.
Well, when I was at uni, I had this friend, and I just felt sorry for him because he was just tongue-tied around this girl. And I'm like, let me just help you out. Like, how do you feel? What do you like about her? And I put it into a really nice poem, and he put it into a card, and he gave it to her, and they started to date, and it was just lovely. Anyway, he went and told all of his friends. And suddenly I had all these people coming up to me going, "Can you help me? Can you
Oh
help
my
me?"
God. Look at this, Rowena. Next year you're going to be get hit up for Valentine's Day now.
What? But I thought it was just, one of those really funny things that was, so futuristic. And I'm like, yeah, that was how I used to earn pocket money at uni, sitting on the uni lawn.
That's amazing.
I had a very strong rapport with the engineering students.
Oh, I bet you did.
So anyway, but it's like we're just laughing. It's like you were saying, it's the waves. It's, you want to be able to find the positives, find the things that bring you that centeredness and peace, be able to, be open and recognize what's happening and process what's happening. I just think it's so important. And to know that you can have both, we can laugh.
Yeah, definitely.
Even during really difficult times.
And I think what's important as well is balance. So some people may misunderstand what we're saying and, they love quiet. I mean, I love my quiet time. Sometimes I just like to be alone, etc. But some people
Mm.
take it too far and, they move out to the hills and they detach themselves from society and people and they'll live on a farm and that's all great and well, but they're also missing out on a lot of things because life is a lot
Mm.
more than just yourself. And that brings me actually back to the start of my media career. I did a little bit of TV presenting and actually had a press pass when the Dalai Lama came to Australia and I got to interview the Dalai
Wow.
Lama.
No way. That's amazing.
Back when the Sydney Entertainment Centre was actually a thing.
Yeah, I
And
remember those days.
yeah, I put my hand up and I said, I don't want to ask you what the meaning of life is because that sounds too big for anyone, even yourself. And he said, that's right. I can't even answer that. And I said, well, can you at least tell me what do you think the key is to a happy life? And he just looked me dead in the eye and said one word. And he said, it's harmony. And he said, I believe if harmony and balance exists, then man and nature and two countries, basically everything and everyone could get along if there's harmony. And I didn't understand that back then. I was 18 at the time,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
43 going on 44. And it's so
Mm.
true. It's about harmony. Like we were just saying, like a review is not 10 questions on a piece of paper. It's talking to somebody, understanding their feelings and their emotions. And if somebody seems like they're having a bad day, is just saying, are you okay? Do you want to go home? Do you want to go for a coffee? If you create harmony with your staff and with your environment, I think things just
Mm.
a lot smoother.
Mm,
So amazing that I could have such a golden piece of information from one of the most beautiful people in the world when I was 18, but did nothing with it until another
yeah.
20 years later.
But I think that's also our own maturity, right? We heard it, but we weren't ready to hear it because we didn't understand it. It was exactly the point that you made around you can ask ChatGPT what love is, but you need a level of personal experience to really understand the words
Yes.
and what they mean. And when it's that piece that gives depth and nuance and insight, you know.
And I think that's probably what led to touching on when you mentioned about how I've lost money in the past from business partners. The first time I was ripped off, it was just a complete, I guess, lack of trust. The money was filtered out of the business and I was left with nothing. Then another business opportunity came around years later when I had rebuilt myself and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to be across absolutely everything. And I looked, dotted every I, crossed every T to make sure the business was running fine. And what had happened is they had basically were skimming money and labeling it as postage or whatever it would may be. And there
Mhm.
was just no way I could get around that. But I still trusted them because I didn't want to be a person who would not trust because I'd been previously ripped off. So that
Mhm.
made me over trust
Mm.
and completely lost everything again. And after that,
Oh my goodness.
it was just after my divorce, and I'm like, okay, if I don't trust, you can't get anywhere in life. And if you keep on trusting, possibly you still can't get anywhere else in life. What do I
Mm.
do? And believe it or not, it was my father once again that said, you need to go with your gut instinct.
Mhm.
So on the third time, I invested in a company and was involved in a company. And I just thought, this is doing really well. I think this is a great thing. And it done superbly. But the more I was not involved in the business and the more I could not get that gut feel about the business anymore because I was detaching myself from it to do other things, that's when the money started going once again. And then I
Mm.
had that raw gut feeling that something was not right. And sure enough, all the money was gone. So now in business and in life, it's not necessarily your first instinct, as people say. I think it's your ongoing feeling, your gut feeling. If there's something not right, most
Yeah.
of the time there actually isn't.
Yeah.
A lot of the
Where
times, my first impressions or first instinct has been incorrect, but things stay in your mind and your conscious has a way of talking to you, and you get that knot in your stomach, whether something's good or bad. So I
mm-hmm.
think it's listening to that ongoing feeling, which is important.
Yeah. I talk a lot about just in my own work, head, heart, and gut.
Yeah,
And corporate is overdeveloped in the head, right? Because it's the rational thinking, it's the IQ, it's the strategy and linear steps and everyone can follow. And I don't think that that's a bad thing, but I think the thing that's not great is using heart and gut. And we talked about heart with
yeah,
connecting with people
yeah,
and understanding them and how to support their development to contribute more, but also for them to be excited and motivated,
yeah,
and to also recognize the spectrum of emotions, right? You've got the tough, you've got the wonderful, and everything in between. That's okay.
yeah.
It's not the hard stuff is not something to be hidden. But going down into gut, I think is also really important because there's just so many elements that we can't necessarily rationally tease apart, but we know are true because humans are incredibly sophisticated and
A lot more than we give ourselves credit for.
a lot more. We're more than our brain, when we're picking exactly what you just described. We're picking up nuance or maybe what someone said or didn't say, or maybe, like you said, like okay, the first time that might make sense, but the third and fourth time that feels a bit fishy, And so just being able to know that your gut is the most sophisticated form of knowing
Yeah,
and trusting that is such a powerful thing.
definitely. And I don't know how to explain how to teach it, but over
Mm.
the last, I would say, or since COVID, when I started to make a lot of these changes with myself slowly, I
Mm.
started letting staff and employees and whatnot know that I worked with that once our relationship ends in the office, it can still continue if I'm in another role, even if I'm your competitor, even if
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a different industry. And over
Mm-hmm.
the years, I think I'm up to 7 people now. I meet with 7 people that have previously either been above me, below me, or in a different category about once
Mm-hmm.
every 2 months. And we don't talk about work. We just talk about
Mm.
how we don't talk about specifics in work. We talk about how you navigate work. I've
Mm-hmm.
had the people that who were working below me, they're flourishing in their careers now because we're just having a conversation a lot of times about gut feel. Well, in this situation, what I would do is A, B, C, and D from past experience. But
Mm.
you ever kind of felt that or come across that yourself? And we're trying to have a conversation and talk about things that you actually can't really describe, but we're just putting whatever words we can to the feelings. And
Mm-hmm.
over the years, these people are becoming experts in their industry, and I'm becoming more in tune in how to explain what a gut feeling is. And I
Mm.
wouldn't call it mentorship, I would just call it building meaningful connections over the years. And even now,
Mm-hmm.
running my own business, I still talk with previous staffers from 2 or 3 previous agencies I've worked with. And we're just talking about life experiences and work experiences. And we don't even know how we got there. We just found that talking about work was boring.
Yeah.
And we talked about
It is.
experiences. You know what I mean? Like, who cares
Yeah.
about another media plan or who cares about another A, B, C, and D? What are you up to? And we
Yeah.
start talking about partners and kids and, oh, I had this one client A, B, C, and D, but I had this weird feeling and then he didn't pay. And so, and then all of a sudden, it's almost like we're having these really intimate conversations just about what we're kind of
Mm.
feeling and experiencing throughout our business life. It's the
Mm.
most fruitful conversations I have now because we just don't worry about dollars and clients. We're just talking about our careers and experiences. And I think yeah, it's just
Mm.
a beautiful experience.
Mm. I love that. I want to ask you a question, which is not straightforward, I guess. Not sure what my question is, but one of the things I have experienced through my life, and then also doing Uncomfortable Growth podcast, this podcast, is that I find women are generally more in tune with their emotions and more in tune with their gut.
Yeah.
And that may be completely unfair. That's just my experience. So I'm fascinated by how much you're talking about this growth in you. And I'm sure there's a very different context also for a male and the expectations of a male. And as you said, you come from a Greek family and there are strong expectations. But how do you find the best way forward as a male who may not have always been as connected to their feelings or connected to their intuition? What was the thing that made that shift into leaning into it?
I think definitely the first time was my father passing away recently. I'll look at two changes. One is recent and one is quite some time back. Most recently is just the things that my father would say to me and how life is limited and tomorrow is not guaranteed. So if you have that feeling or you know something is not right or you're worried about your children or you don't know how to tell them you love them or your boss that you're unhappy with something, it is not worth delaying it and to find the words to express it.
Mm.
So I guess that was a real kick up the bum, knowing that you have to say that. You need to get it off your
Mm.
chest, whether it's right or wrong. But obviously, it's all in the delivery. You don't need to be
Mm.
rude about it. You just need to communicate it effectively. If
Mhm.
I were to go back further, it was when I met my partner, and she was has a very high EQ,
Mhm.
um, and basically was helping me. I would basically practice on her. I would say, okay, I have to go in and talk to this client, this staffer. They've just had, their sister pass away, and I'm not really too good with emotions. And I don't want to sit down and go, "Hey, you're right," and give them a pat on the back and a coffee when their sister's passed away. Like, how would you deliver that information? And the way that practicing that and the way that she would explain it to me and listening, I thought it was great. And that's basically what, having a marriage or relationship, whatever it may be. And it's what we do with our children when they fall over or hurt themselves or they get a poor mark at school or there's an uncomfortable situation, is you need to have those difficult conversations or you do not grow, and you need to be able to learn how to communicate. So basically over the last 6 years, it was almost like my partner was like my Svengali when it came to emotions. And she taught me those skills, which were by far my biggest gap in business. I could tear apart a business and find the faults in it, or a marketing campaign, that's fine. But when it came to dealing with people, that was my biggest gap, because I was almost too forward a lot of the times and I didn't know how to deliver. So I would say, yeah, being on top of my game and thinking I'm indestructible, and then all these things happening to me, and then meeting my partner and her teaching me how to communicate better, that was when I started to evolve as a man. And it also changed how I fathered as well, because I found it uncomfortable to have certain conversations with my children, because I would either think, too bad, that's life, you're going to get upset now when I talk to you, or I would think, that's happened to me, it's going to happen to you. But now the way I look at it is, well, this is probably occurring for the first time in your life and you don't know how to deal with this, to give them words of advice and to let them know that I'm here. So I changed my communication style across the board, not just in business. And that's made me feel a lot more comfortable about who I am.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that, because I think we're all both. We're all wired for both, right? For IQ, EQ.
Yep.
Some of us are born with natural talent or strength in an area,
Yeah.
but we've all got the ability to develop and improve.
Yeah, definitely.
And and I do see such a high need for connection and EQ in the workplace, particularly when so much is happening through machines, right? Because it's your point on balance. We want that connection. If I go back to when I first started work as a whippersnapper, just after my love letters, um, things weren't as frenetic.
Yeah.
Like you had so much more time for having one-on-one conversations and team meetings and coaching, and it wasn't the same freneticism.
Yeah.
One of the things I've always done is I've kept files forever, and I classify them just by year, right? So I've
Yeah.
got files that go back to 1999 or something. I think at
What are
some
in
point
these
I took
what
it
are
from
in
the
these
floppy disk.
files?
Yeah, the floppy disk. But what's fascinating to look at is by year how little there were in terms of content, because you didn't have big stories, you couldn't save a million PowerPoints, it was really basic. A lot of stuff still got done through meetings, not through
Yeah.
email. And then year by year, you can see the increase in the number of files. So that since 2000, there's like so many files. There's no way I could even go back and read them all, right? Like
Yeah.
you just overwhelm, you keep it in case. And so I just look at that progression, and as we're doing more stuff through machines and with technology, which of course has massive benefits, we need to be more mindful of the importance of quality connection, and just making sure that we see that as valuable,
Of
because it
course.
is.
And I think a lot of the times we tend to overanalyze IQ and EQ, because a lot of the times we actually all know what we're feeling. We just don't know how to communicate it. So it's not necessarily a matter of what is your IQ or EQ.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry when we see that person in pain or they need help or it's an awkward situation.
Mm.
We're human and we have those correct feelings, but we just don't know how to get the words out of our mouth to connect with that person. And then that
Mm.
person may be labeled with a low EQ when in fact they just need help with communicating in that awkward situation.
Yeah, yeah. And I love the point you made around having difficult conversations, say with your kids or in the workplace, because I think um, empathy is so important to connect and understand where someone's at, but you also need to be able to have honest but caring feedback conversations,
Yes,
right?
the
Like
difficult ones.
the difficult ones where maybe someone isn't motivated and are not delivering. I
Yeah,
mean, they happen as well. And so I think it's so important to practice, but also learn how you can be really direct so that people understand the issue, but also doing it in a caring way and doing
definitely.
it in a way that's not aggressive or high conflict or competitive or, any of
Yeah,
those political behaviors that you do
I,
sometimes see.
100%. Yeah. One, you nailed it on the head. It's not just about the delivery and being empathetic, but I think it's also about the motive. Why is this person not motivated? Did somebody pass
Mm.
away? Are they struggling with their
Mhm.
finances? Do they feel like they deserve more at work and they haven't got that pay rise? I think if you
Mm.
understand the motive, you can also get to the root of a lot of issues.
So true. And all of that happens through conversation because you can't
Definitely.
you can't guess what that is. It's going
That's
to
right.
it could be so many different things.
It could be somebody who's just a gamer and then they didn't up to the next level. Like you just don't know what it
You
is about.
don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Oh, so this has been such an amazing conversation, but I want to finish off with some of my quick fire questions.
Yep.
Okay, so the first question is, what is something that you have learnt about yourself in recent years?
That it's okay to feel broken.
Oh, I love that.
Definitely, because I have felt very broken and I got through it.
Mm,
So now I'm confident that next time I break, I'll feel better knowing that it'll pass.
that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Number two, what is important to you at the moment in your life?
My family,
Mm,
definitely. I'm not sure if it's because I'm the eldest and my father's passed away, so now I feel like I'm just worried about everybody and everything all the time being the eldest. But I find that as time goes on, I'm loving and appreciating my family a lot more, and I'm starting to miss when they're around a lot more.
mm, I love that too. Okay, last question, which has three
Yep.
parts, so it's really three questions, but I'm going to
Okay.
pretend it's one question. Okay, what is a current fear, inspiration, and challenge for you at the moment? So we have fear, inspiration, and challenge.
Fear would definitely be how the world is changing and how my children and that generation is going to navigate. I'm actually terrified because the world is going to be completely different and a lot of children need to find their own way as they mature. So they're going to go into uni and study things that may be irrelevant or not existent in the future. So I'm really scared for, I guess, the next generation. And it gets me thinking all the time, how can I prepare my kids better?
Mhm.
Be my fear. The next one was inspiration.
Inspiration and then challenge.
Inspiration. The thing that inspires me the most at the moment would definitely have to be writing my book. I think that really challenges me because I'm writing, it inspires me to look back at who I was and who I am now and who I'd like to become in the future. So the book that I'm writing about business and marketing and my experiences, I think is giving me the inspiration to be a better person. It's almost like a journal. I have to reformat it now to be more in a book. So it's been a great inspiration and very cathartic, definitely.
Yeah. It's interesting how much we have in our history, but it's when we start to think about it and reflect on it and see it again that we take out deeper meaning.
Just like your files.
Yeah, my files, exactly. I want to go back to 1999. Uh,
And challenge, my biggest challenge at the moment
Mhm.
would be definitely, I would say, the business landscape in Australia. It's changing quite dramatically, and the Australian landscape, although we're quite small to the rest of the world, we tend to not be leaders, we tend to be followers. So fear can impact the market when there's financial change, AI change, etc. And what you find, such as during COVID, a lot of businesses will pop up and they'll be marketing gurus or business experts, and they've only been in the game for 6 to 12 months. And a lot of businesses and brands get ripped off. It
Mhm.
creates uncertainty and it builds a lot of distrust in the industry. So the people who are genuine and unique out there have to fight harder for the business. So I find the Australian business environment to be quite challenging at the moment. It's probably something that keeps me up at night more so over my fear. It's because
Mm.
we're changing and evolving all the time. And just when you think you've nailed something, something
Mhm.
else comes out. So you always have to be on your toes and you always have to be a quick learner now, I think, in
Mm.
business.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. Well, thank you so much, Taz. I have loved our conversation, and it's not only given me so many things to think about, I know it will equally inspire and challenge so many of the listeners out there. So thank you so much for your story.
No, thank you for your time, Rowena. I look forward to seeing you around the traps again.
Absolutely. If you are inspired but thinking, I can't do that, then you are so wrong. Anyone can learn the art of uncomfortable growth with the help of my flagship program, Uncomfortable Growth, Own Your Reinvention. In this, you will learn to navigate your own internal contradictions to finally unlock the courage and commitment to live a deeply meaningful life by design and on your terms. Uncomfortable growth is about the struggle and joy in discovering who you are, what you truly want, and how to make it happen. If this is something you are ready for, then find out more at www.rowenamillward.com. What have you got to lose, or more importantly, gain?